Okay.
What's that? What you're rustling?
At the moment, I'm just turning some pages.
Pages?
Yeah, no.
Hang on. Is this show prep? Have you got show prep?
No, it's just something I saw on the internet. I just wanted to remember it.
Oh right. Oh well.
Yeah.
So it sounds like show prep to me. This is far too
Technical.
organised. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know Kung Fu.
Show me.
You are the new student. Come closer.
You're listening to the Kung Fu Podcast presented by James Still
I don't care if it's Muhammad, Imard, Bruce Lee.
and Steve Newby.
This is the original Five Fingers of Death right here.
But my hands are registered as lethal weapons. That means we get into a fight, I accidentally kill you, I go to jail.
Okay. Yeah, we are recording. We are all systems go. Houston, give me a go, no go for launch. Steve, go! James, go! Yes, that's right. Okay. Sorry, I was watching Apollo 13 earlier on. it ended well.
In that case,
Yeah.
we have a problem.
We certainly do have a problem, you know. I think that Apollo 13 is a good metaphor for our sort of for our podcast. We started it with the best intentions, and then it's kind of gone off the rails. But we'll soon we might crash to Earth, you know. Never mind.
We're being influenced by the people that talk to us,
This is true.
and by the people who don't.
Oh, right. Anyway, guys, welcome to episode 19 of the Kung Fu Podcast. My name's James Still. I'll be your compere for the evening, and I'm joined with Steve Newby, my teacher of many years. Hi, Steve. How you doing?
Good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
You okay? How's life treating you in Canada?
Not bad. It's been a nice day today. Rain started with rain, and then after that, it's been a great day.
Oh well, that's nice.
I've been out all day.
Yeah. What have you been up to?
Yeah. Unlike you all,
Yeah, well,
I've been driver training and
okay.
whatever. So
Wow.
I'm learning to drive on the right-hand side of the road, of course.
You mean the wrong hand side of the road?
Yeah, the wrong-hand side of the road. I've decided that I'm going to become a driving instructor.
Wow.
And the reason for that is because I want to teach them how to drive around bloody islands.
You mean roundabouts, old man? Come on.
Yeah.
You're really getting into the lingo now. It's a roundabout.
Yeah, well,
It's
they call
a
it roundabout.
handbrake. It's a bonnet. It's a boot. You know.
Now I have to change all my language. I can't call it a junction. It has to be an intersection. Oh my God, the language is,
Well,
that's what it's holding me back.
is,
Trying to
yeah.
speak my lingo.
I just feel sorry for these students you're gonna have. You're right there. How are you? No. Good, excellent. I suppose we should talk about something sort of more kung fu-y. Another thing. I'm learning to weld. I bought an arc welder the other day, and I'm making my own butterfly knives. How cool is that? Because
You just can't buy them. They're just so useless when you buy them.
oh, I've had to get all the materials like sheet, steel,
And the bar.
and the bar to sort of bend. I've had to get pipe benders and stuff like that. So I'm sort of constructing them to your specifications, shall we say? So I will keep you posted on that, and hopefully once they're done, I'll. Obviously, it's not going to be good, but
They look good from what I've seen on the photos.
I feel like bloody John Rambo when I'm, making a knife. It's great. It's fantastic.
I think he actually just sharpens it.
No, Rambo makes the knife. I've seen Rambo.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I used to have a Rambo knife with it had like matches and needle and thread in the back in the handle.
Did it have a can opener?
Inside the grip, you unscrew it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, on the thing itself, but inside the grip, you unscrew the cap, and you've got everything inside. It's great.
Do you know, like, that is one of those knives that if you show that to any sort of serviceman or woman, they would just laugh at you. Because it's like the most sort of ridiculously oversized knife you could ever have. Like I like the best knife when I was in the art was just like a tiny sort of pocket knife with a Gerber, a short bladed, and because it's most useful, it was small, but not this frigging Rambo Marine
useless
survivor knife. I was like, oh, whatever.
Unless you got enough buffalo.
Yeah. But I mean, you got a buffalo. Bit of roadkill around here, if you're lucky. Right. Well, we are going to proceed. What I want to do, we've had an interesting week, an interesting response to our week, because a couple of days back, from obviously relative to the point we're recording this, we released a reaction video of you basically talking about and commenting on very, very bad martial arts, particularly to do with Lau Gar. I tell you what, we've made some friends, and we've made a few, not enemies, but a few critics out there. But whatever.
Well, isn't it funny how? I mean, sometimes you find that students of people like that will support them, I guess, because they're being criticised, so they support them, thinking, oh, they're being hard done by, without actually stopping to think, wait a minute, this guy's taking my money, he's teaching me crap stuff which is completely useless. Oh yeah, it's a great club atmosphere, I guess, until someone gets injured.
Well,
and I can't believe how people can. I mean, you've seen it I guess you've seen it on YouTube, haven't you, where people are there and they throwing punches at someone, and then they kind of being knocked away without even being touched, and then they're bouncing around the room for a while. You see all that kind of crap, but this was an attempt at Lau. Obviously I know the guy, I trained the guy to a degree.
It's worth saying,
Yeah, well, he weren't listening.
Yeah, but the thing is, like you always say, you've got to have a good student, good teacher, and good subject matter. And if one of them is, deficient, you're going to struggle. The problem was,
all I can say,
wasn't a good student.
No, he wasn't a good student. All I can say is that I had a reputation of 100% pass until him. And I asked, I sat with him for 7 hours trying to explain to him that there's no way on earth he's capable of taking a black sash. And then he tried to take the black sash anyway. He says, well, I'll take it, because I've never been one to say, you do this, you do that, you can't do this, you can't do that. I've always tried to convince people through negotiation. And so, of course, on that day I did everything I could. The next day was going to be the grading. I says, look, you cannot take that grading. There's no way you're ready. There's no way you're going to be ready for a while. Oh yeah, I'll just take it. I'll just have a go. And of course he had a go and he failed miserably. And then he just did the usual dirty tricks that people like that do, and Bob's your uncle. And so I felt it only fair that I do a response video to what I've seen him attempt to do over the last few years.
For me, I love Lau Gar, love it. I don't profess to represent the style in any way. I just don't. But when I see it done badly, and when I see it sort of pillaged, and that's a polite way of putting it, by people
bastardized.
bastardized, and it's an absolute insult to my sensibility. And you know, that's just me. Like, and I'm so passionate about, you know, the style being taught to a reasonable standard. My standard, it's not the best in the world, but I tell you what, it sure as hell ain't the worst in the world either.
No.
But when I see people like that get away with that level of shit on, you know, and they have the front, he's got more front than friggin' Blackpool, he's got more front than Blackpool, to put it on, you know, on YouTube, and I'm just like, wow, you know, incredible.
He obviously believes in himself.
Yeah, it deserves a response.
Wait till you see the stick stuff.
Jesus, I'm just like, you know, it saddens me. It saddens me because, you know, we've got a wonderful style that needs to be cherished and embraced and even nurtured now. And there's people like that around doing it. There's people, you know, who are kind of indifferent to it. Oh yeah, whatever, just let him do it, whatever. And it's like, hang on a second, have a bit of pride in what you do. Have a bit of self-respect. You know, you know.
Well, if an organisation's going to gel, it's got to gel together. It's got to be, you know, it's got to go in the same direction. But you've got to protect it, and you know, I understand that people want to leave. There's no problem with people falling out with instructors and so on. But you know, the most important thing about an organisation is that you know, it has to be an organisation. An association is not an organisation. Unless it's organised, right? And then you know, that's the thing. But I mean, everybody does the style differently, as you say. You'll do it different to me, and even though you might learn from me, it's not the point. The fact is that we're not clones. No. But the other thing, of course, is that, you know, you've got to have a little bit of respect for the style, and not just treat the style as if it's your own. Treat it as if you know, it's kind of like something that you can just prosper from. No, totally. You've got to give something back, and that's just it's just not on. Yeah, basically.
Like when you say, "Oh, treat the style as if it's your own." I mean, you always talk about teach an individual, not the style, and that totally resonates, because if you were teaching the style, it means you're going to conform to teach every single student the same way. But when you teach the individual, you know, it's you know, you're emphasizing their strengths, their weaknesses. You know, you're taking the style in a direction. Obviously, it's relative to your knowledge of the style. So let's just hope that you've got a good grasp of it. But you know, that's what you're talking about. And
I think, but I think the best way to describe it is that, you know, it's not that we're trying to change the art in when we do it differently, because we're all going to do it differently. But you know, we cannot change the martial art. What we can do, though, is change the way we represent it to others. So some people will do it as, you know, because it's for fun, or for historical reasons, or for you know, all the Chinese mythology and philosophy and that sort of thing, which is great. I mean, it really sounds great and so on. And then you get a lot of people. I saw, you know, a thing with this guy who did I was telling you earlier about the guy that did the, what is it, Aikido, and he really believed that his Aikido was the most shall we say purist martial art he was taught. And of course, as he's gone around, he's big on YouTube, and he's going around all these different martial arts, seeing the difference, and you know, but it's him then making the assumptions that all martial arts are taught just for that kind of philosophical and you know, mythological and whatever reason, you know, that it actually doesn't work in self-defense. And then of course there's a lot of people that turn around and say, martial arts is no good for self-defense. But what they're missing the point. I know they're missing the point, because they you know, they've got a fair comment when they say, with certain when you see some styles, I can understand what they're saying. I do accept that.
Sorry, I was just in the general term of martial art. Like, if it wasn't designed for self-defense, then you know. But I suppose
they're basically saying, you know, fighting, self-defense, and martial arts are not the same. And it's true in many guises, in many forms, many styles. But that's because they've chosen it that way.
Yeah.
You know, maybe they haven't got the information or the knowledge or the practice or the capability in that sense.
Yeah.
But the problem is that you can't tar everybody with the same brush. I mean, we know for a fact that, you know, what we do works. We understand totally that if you're going to train just the, you know, fluid and beautiful forms, and then of course it's not going to work for you because you're not going to have enough training for self-defense. Fighting's not going to be any good for you because you never get any fighting done. But that's, you know, we discuss it the other day when we turned around and said about, you know, MMA. Oh, well, you know, if MMA fighters just concentrated on the fighting and didn't, you know, they may as well give up all the skipping, give up all the road running, give up all the exercises, and just concentrate on the fighting. They're not going to be good fighters.
Well, it's like, we only train the techniques that are worth training and that we can apply in a fight. Okay, then we'll stop skipping, stop punching bags, stop going on speedballs, you know, all the rest of it. Because if that's your attitude, do it literally, and then we'll see how good you are. Oh, you know, if you just want to get into the ring and spar, and you've got no foundation building blocks, if you like, such as your footwork, such, you know, etc., then you know, how long do you think it's going to take before you know, going to be reasonably proficient? You know, I'd argue a hell of a lot longer, unless you do all this preliminary work.
Yeah, you've got it. Yeah, I mean, but I do understand where people are coming from when they say about martial arts, because we were just talking the other day, weren't we, about people doing, and God knows why, they're just doing all these, they're getting these bigger and bigger forms to try to win competitions. So they're obviously putting across this kind of concept of the other martial arts, of the trap that other martial arts have fallen into, where they're just trying to make sets more, I don't know, aesthetic. They're trying to make them more convincing, if you want, by doing these wushu forms and these tai chi forms, and so they're not really concentrating on the style that was meant to be, you know, taught. And so what's happening is they're forgetting their basics, or they're not even practicing their basics. They're certainly not digesting their basics. And without those basics, no, you're right, you cannot fight and you cannot do self-defense. But those basics are provisional self-defense techniques. They're vehicles in which to learn self-defense, just the same as in a boxing match, or a boxing ring, or a kickboxing kind of a style, whatever. You are going to be practicing all the preliminary movements so that you can then do them proficiently, not only against an individual who's moving, but of course against a bag, because the first time you do this, if you've never done them before, you hit a bag, you're going to break you're going to dislocate your shoulder, or you're going to break your foot. So you've got to learn these provisional things, but of course there are a lot less provisional things to learn in a much shorter version of an art, if you want. And so with a martial art, yes, there is more to learn, but you've got to understand, really it is just the learning process to be able to give you, as we said last week, not just, or the last podcast, I don't know, one of them, one of them somewhere, the ability to stand and fight with punches, and then the no man's land between the point where you're throwing a punch and the point where the other person is trying to throw you to the floor. That's the point that you're training within that martial art. And of course it works. It's totally dependent on how much you train. It's totally dependent on, you know, on your ability with another opponent, your size, and so on and so forth. But, you know, yes, if you're a bigger person, it's going to be easier for you. Size does matter, of course it does. So it's going to be easier for you if you're a bigger person. But, you know, you can't turn around and say to small people, there's no way on earth you're ever going to defend yourself, because, you know, all small people may as well give up, and they end up carrying weapons and, you know, whatever. So this is not the case. Small people can defend themselves against big people, provided they've got the technical ability and the knowledge and the training. They must train. And so, you know, and of course they can run, and hopefully run faster. But you know, that's a measure of self-defense. Running is a good measure of self-defense. but not everybody can run, and not all circumstances allow you to be able to run. If you're standing there with your girlfriend and with a kid in a pram and you're accosted by several people, you're not going to run. You have to consider a form of defence. So you have to not only go by your technical ability or your technical knowledge, but the specific knowledge you hopefully have been taught in terms of the environment. So martial arts isn't just because self-defense is about the environment. What makes you think that martial arts isn't taught with the environment in mind? It's limiting itself. The person who's teaching it will limit it if they're not talking and not teaching environmental differences and changes and the way you can use the environment to your advantage, because that is literally self-defense.
I like listening to Bob Dylan. Right, he's one of my favourite songwriters.
He sings about as good as you.
I got it from my dad anyway. I was watching this documentary with Bob Dylan. He was talking about when he was growing up, and he said, the weather. Anyway, I won't do his voice, but basically, the weather equalises everybody. And I thought that's a really interesting point, because he was talking about like if it's crap weather, if it's like the Dust Bowl or whatever, everyone is under the same boat. And I was just wondering, is it like that with martial arts? Like how many, if it's -10 outside, how many people are going to be training martial arts and fighting and whatnot, and do you know what I mean? Like when you say the environment affects martial art, and it's like
I think you're right. I mean, certainly in the old days they would not decide to fight in the middle of rain. If it rained in the meantime, well, that's absolutely fine. I mean, again, Agincourt was a good one. When it rained the day before, so they knew it was going to be wet. Right. So that's why all the French lost. It's because they were so heavy. Heavy cavalry. But the point is, I mean, looking at some of the things that people have said about martial arts, I mean, like we're talking about years and years of training, and only you could train 40 years, and out of those 40 years only 2 years are devoted for self-defense. Again, that's down to who is teaching you, how you're training, or what you want to learn. And but you've got to learn the basics. And this is, people always chastise me, and not publicly, but they always say, but you're always into the basics, and you don't want to learn all these. I mean, I've learned all the weapon forms, because each weapon form is a basic weapon form. Okay, so from that basic weapon form you learn to use that weapon. But the same thing with all the forms up into Black Sash. They are basic forms that you learn to use the techniques, and then you use them in a totally different way with the next set, and you use them and add more for the next set, and so on. So
I always interpreted the sets as they are one big set instead of lots of individual sets. So
and all you're doing, that's right, and all you're doing is changing the way that you use that technique for a different purpose, right, and in a different way. But if it's got the same mechanics, it's the same movement. Just because it's aimed at something different, just because it has a different direction, doesn't mean a thing. It's just giving you another example of the same technique. But of course the sets add more to it. So eventually you start to work those out for yourself.
I've got an interesting sort of comparison with that. If I'm working out at home, and if mind you, normally I'm working with thumbs on my PlayStation, whatever. And if I'm working out at home, got a heavy bag, right? So on the heavy bag, like 9 times out of 10, I'm gonna just put on some boxing gloves, punch it, uppercuts, hooks, blah 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 blah, bit of bob and weave, bit of body movement, some basic kicks or whatever. And for me, like, that's enough. I don't have to do, every single technique from the form in order to get something from my workout. Do you understand what I mean? I'm not saying you don't train your individual techniques, because you can, but to keep
that's giving you the fitness.
To keep me ticking over, I'm doing a punch, but at the same time in my head, I'm punching. I could be interpreting that as a palm strike, as a, whatever. You're using the same mechanics when you hit the bag for many different techniques. That's my point. And it's like, But
you see, with forms, in terms of martial arts, with forms, they're meant to be vehicles for those techniques to be used. The biggest problem with most martial arts is they'll learn the forms, but they can build them up until they've got the muscle memory. They can't forget them easily.
Yes.
Even if they stop training, they'll retain 60% of what they learned. Okay, so they learn those forms. Then what do? They think they've got to keep practicing those forms, but that's not going to take them any closer to using those forms. It's only going to give them a repetitive, constant training motion, and maybe it'll keep them fit. Okay, but unless you break those forms up and start using them in a self-defense guise, in a self-defense situation as practice, you're never going to be able to do self-defense. So yes, in that context, Kung Fu or martial arts in general is useless in self-defense if you're not going to take that vehicle and start to break it down and actually use it for the purpose it was meant to be used for. But the problem is people don't break it down for the purpose it was used for. They just continue to try to make it prettier and prettier until then they're not satisfied with it, so then they want a bigger form to make that more pretty, and then when that style can't give them any more prettiness, can't give them any more aestheticism or whatever you want to call it, they start looking towards wushu. They start looking towards the things that actually were just designed in the 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s that took over. I mean, look how many people go to the bloody Shaolin and sort of learn all these big long forms. It has nothing to do with the original Shaolin temple. It's
communist. It's chucked together by the government. That's what all the forms are in Shaolin. That's what it is.
Okay. Look, we're talking about fighting and so on. In terms of let's look. There are no monks in MMA, and yet I believe that they would, possibly be pretty good if they was training in the way that they used to train. But of course, but today it's all wushu stuff. Now, before I go on, someone is going to say, write in or phone in or whatever, and they're going to say there is a monk in MMA or kickboxing or whatever.
This is what I understand.
He's not a monk. Okay.
So about when you went to Shaolin sort of 2000s, because I follow some other podcasts and stuff, and this one guy, Ramsey Dewey, who I recommend him. He's a really good sort of commentator on martial arts. He's an American guy.
I watch him. I think he's good.
He presents it really well.
Yep.
Anyway, he was talking to an ex-Shaolin monk, and this ex-Shaolin monk, Shaolin monk in inverted marks. He was saying, look, around sort of the year 2000 or whatever, Shaolin training was purely wushu. Purely. That's all they did. They didn't really have a concept of fighting, at all. So what happened is, over the last 20 years or so, because of the proliferation of sort of MMA, for one thing, it's actually popular in China. It's more popular than Kung Fu, and so is Taekwondo is more popular than Kung Fu in China. And he was saying these monks now have sort of employed sanshao, again, what you call Chinese kickboxing, grabbing the legs, throw stuff. They've employed a lot of people to sort of teach them that as well, so that they can, to a degree, have some understanding of fighting. So it's not that they don't do any fighting now. It's just primarily they're doing wushu and athleticism, but they do some sort of sparring and
but that doesn't make them the best, unfortunately. But what you have in China is a system whereby they will watch you at school, and if you are good, they'll take you. It's like a football coach going to football matches at school and watching you, and then they'll take you on in the junior team and so on. Well, what they do in China is they obviously will take you to specific schools, special colleges, and actually just train that particular sport. And because you're showing promise, they will keep you and keep training you and you become phenomenally good. But at any point in time, if you don't make the grade, you're dropped. Right? Now, there's a guy that does kickboxing and he dresses as a monk because that is his what do you call it?
Unique
it's his
selling point.
It's if you want to call it that. There's a word for it, but we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
And basically, he thinks, well, this works. So if I shave my hair off, dress as a monk, and then it kind of makes me stick out a little bit, right? And he goes to these competitions and he fights and he's pretty good.
Yeah.
And everyone says the Shaolin monk. He's never been to Shaolin in his life. And the thing is, you can say that about an awful lot of people that have gone over from China to America and various other places, and they dress as monks.
Yeah.
And because that is a great selling point.
Well, as we discussed on one of the previous podcasts, it's the CEO monk, and all that. It's a business. Yeah. Shaolin is a business. It ain't martial arts. Like it might resemble martial arts in some way, but for Christ's sake, just read history. You know what I mean? Yeah,
it's not the same. It's not the same as what it was. So it's misrepresented to many people, and a lot of people go to and good on them if they go to Shaolin and they actually stand at the Shaolin temple. That's fantastic. It's a great place to go and visit Mecca. But if you want to go and wear pajamas and eat rice for 6 months and pay thousands of pounds for the privilege, then by all means do it. Okay,
well,
then go and buy a wushu sword, a little flimsy sword that you can throw around, and you'll look really good if you train hard. You'll look so athletically good. But that is why MMA laugh at us.
Yeah, absolutely, and I don't
because
blame them.
That's what they no, nor do I, and that's why I see these people, and then they have the audacity to say, no, my martial art is better than MMA, and then they actually challenge someone who actually trains to fight and get the shit kicked out of them. And why do they do that? Because they have so much belief. I mean, what we've got to teach is a science, but we've got to find the people who want to learn that science, and most important of all, they want to practice that science till it works.
This is a question that always sort of confuses me, or not confuses me now, but it did for a long time. I was wondering if I get your sort of thoughts on it. Do you need to be athletic to do martial arts?
Well, if you're practicing specific moves for a certain period of time, you're going to have that capability, just the same as if you were an arc welder and you just got that arc welding off to such a T that you could do it, pretty much wham, done. Beautifully smooth arc welding. I don't hate. I hate to rock your boat, James, but anyway.
Hey, it's stuck together. I threw it up my wall. It's still stood in one bit. Anyway.
Okay, so maybe using another analogy, you could say that anyone in any kind of business, any kind of situation where they had to train for a specific physical activity in their job. They can. I mean, have you ever watched these people on YouTube? The fastest at their job. When they're making pizzas or they're the speed,
whatever skill,
or just printing stuff, or just folding stuff. Jesus Christ, the speed that they can go.
Oh, a long time ago,
phenomenal.
I was doing pest control. I was working pest control. I went to one of the chicken hatcheries where they hatch the eggs and the little chicks come up, and all these people are sorting out the male from the female, and you should see them just throwing over their shoulder all these chicks, but they're going so fast. It's like watching a robot, incredible. But they do it all the time. Like, that's their physicality. They can do it.
So it doesn't matter what size they are.
Yeah.
If they can build up a physical, activity and it works for them, then great.
Yeah.
Of course, I mean, you can say it limits them, but if they're big, that doesn't really matter, does it? Because they've got the size on their side. But I mean, going back to what we said earlier, people say you train for 40 years and only 2 years is self-defense. I mentioned. I mean, and then you might never ever be attacked. And this is what someone says, they'd rather do self-defense. But you could train self-defense for 40 years and you may never get attacked. So it's all relative. It's all going to be a waste of time if you don't get attacked. So maybe you should go around the back streets of like New York or something and do your best to get attacked. But that's not going to help you.
You're get shot.
Exactly. It's not going to help you, is it? So self-defense is a possibility. It's a not a likelihood, not in today's society. So when you're looking at, unless you're of that ilk, unless you're of that kind of upbringing, and I know that upbringing because that's where I came from. I used to go out. Oh well, no, I can't say that because I'll put myself in jeopardy. I may get arrested. But no, when I was a little kid, 6 years old, my dad had to come and find me, emptying telephone boxes with 6-penny bits with a lollipop stick. It just, I was a scallywag when I was a kid, and I was I must have been a terrible son to my parents. But I was the youngest of the family, and but there you go. It's just if you want to live in that kind of world, then that's fine, and it is a world you get used to, and but if you can get out of it, then you'll never get that situation.
I tell you what it gives you. I always think street smarts, and that you can't buy, and it's like you developing an attitude in relation to conflict. And like we've discussed before, almost like an instinctive sort of sense or paranoia, if you can hone it like that. But some things you can't buy, and and so obviously you can train it. You can really focus your training and whatnot.
Well, some things you can train, but some things you can't, and sometimes it's an inbuilt mechanism that you have, and
I'm not saying I've got it. I'm just
I didn't say that. I didn't say that. I'm just saying, but that's what it is. It can be an inbuilt mechanism, and whether you've got it or not, I have no idea. And probably if you've never been in a situation, not you, but anyone who's never been in that situation doesn't even know that they've got it until it happens, and then it's that fight or flight mechanism. And it's like me, last week when I was talking, or last podcast when I was talking about those kids chasing me on my push bike, and because I said get in the car, what was I going to do? But I had that kind of attitude because I just I can't be bullied. It's impossible to bully me. I can't. You have to go and sort it. You can't. When I was in the Navy, I was 16 years old. I went out. I sort of knew where all the empty cabins were on this passenger ship. I'll be brief, I promise. Okay. And there was this girl that I met while she was on her cruise with her parents. And I got talking to her.
You were in the Merchant Navy. What are you doing? Cruising?
In
a Merchant Navy? Were you on a cruise ship, were you? I thought you just...
I've been on oil tankers, cruisers. Gas tankers.
I just thought it was more...
Container ships, everything, Right. Oh, no, any ship.
Right. Sorry.
So you'd go on these cruises. I met Barbara Windsor.
Did you? You met Babs?
She was in a bikini. She said hello. She was right at the top of the ship. Trying to be private, and I just walked along there and saw her lying there in a bikini at an age when you want to see her in a bikini.
You should have got doing some lunges or something.
Jesus. And go past her, you go, all right? She goes, hello. I go, all right. And that was about it, really. I didn't stop I didn't go up. Anyway, I said I'd cut a long story short.
Sorry.
I went out with this girl, and I started, talking to her in a private cabin, and we didn't do anything. We didn't get into any kind of, physical contact or anything like that. We just talked about movies and so on. It was just great to have someone to talk to when you're that young and you're on a ship alone, with all these salty sea dogs.
Well,
anyway,
I get you.
The next day, her dad was looking for me. And he was all over the ship. He went to the captain, and he at the captain's table. Can you imagine him standing there screaming at the captain? And the captain come up to the bridge where I was on watch, and he says, what have you done? Blah blah blah. And he fired me. Right, I got fired.
Wow.
Right, and when we reached the port, I was going to be let off the ship. Anyway, point continues. So the next day, I knew this guy was looking for me. He was a Millwall dock worker, from London, and the parents, the mother broke her wedding ring on the girl's face, trying to make her confess she'd done something with me.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And the dad was livid, and he was running around the ship trying to find me. And the crew would have protected me anyway, but in the end, I just thought, I can't take this. So the next day, I just went into the where other passengers were, and the dad there was sitting reading a newspaper on next to the swimming pool, and I slid up to him, and I slid into the chair on his table, and I says, "You want to see me?" And he says, "Did you do anything?" I said, "No." He says, "Well, I don't want to see you then." And that was it. And I just went, okay, and I went, but I did it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I had no choice. I had to go and I face him.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's not courage. It's like it's something you've got in you that you just you can't possess. It's something that possesses you, that you have no choice to deal with it. And that was a typical example of stupidity that I had.
No, it's,
and
you don't want the weight of the world on your shoulders. Why should you get rid of it?
I'm just going to deal with it. I'm going to deal with it wherever happens. Take the fight to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
And
do me a favour, just take your mic back a bit. You're going dangerously high.
Okay.
So that's probably better. Yeah, no, it's that's better. But it's you can't live with certain things. You can't live with.
Yeah,
certain things.
it's just basically, it's like I said before to you. I can't stand vandals, and I just have no choice but to respond and react. And it's a stupid thing, but it's something that you can't do. People can't threaten you, and what do you do in that situation? And so of course it is a fight or flight situation, and I invariably end up fighting, and that's been my kind of way all my life, I guess. And when I say fighting, right, I don't mean I'm a street fighter or street savvy and all that. I'm not trying to promote that. What I'm saying is I'm going to face it. I'm going to face the music, and many times, as example, with road rage and so on, you confront them, because you can't have people chasing you and all this. Like, you get out the car, otherwise your car is a coffin. Get out your car. That's what I do. Yeah. You get out your car and you just look at them. Yeah. And let's see what they do. Yeah. And they always turn around and think about it before they do anything.
I had the same thing happen to me in Northern Ireland when I was out there. I was driving my little my sports car, my MR2. Beautiful car. It had a T-bar top and everything. And I was pulling out of a because it's such a low car.
I did see that car.
Oh, it's lovely. I love that car.
I did see it, yeah.
Yeah, I got rid of it. I did all the exhaust. Anyway, I proper pimped it out. Like, oh, yeah. And anyway, I was in Northern Ireland. I was parking in this car park space. I was between two, like, really tall Land Rovers. And I was going in the cinema. And I was in such a low car that once I was in my car, I just literally had the rear vision, view out me, back window. So nothing. So I had to edge out when I was reversing out the spot. Anyway, as I edged out, because I couldn't see what was behind me, very slowly, cautiously, next thing I know, I'm sort of halfway out and honking the horn, effing this, effing that, and I was just like, sorry mate, or whatever, what can I do? What does he want me to do? Anyway, so I started to proceed driving around the car park, and this guy started following me, and I could see in my rearview mirror, blacking. I'm like, what are you on? What are you on, you cheeky bugger? So I stopped my car, handbrake on, and what I made a purpose of doing, I stormed out my car and I slammed my car door shut, and I started walking towards his car, and what he did is he got out, but I closed the gap and he remained. So I thought, right, I've got you. Not to fight him, but just to sort of the fighting without fighting. Let's assert myself straight away. Get get into his space. Not that I was close, but the point is, it was a psychological thing, because I'm not having that. I want to diffuse it straight there. Sure enough, what are you doing, mate? And straight away he calmed down, but he was still angry. I said, listen, you know, you could see my situation. I apologise if I offend you. Are we good? Yeah. Anyway, gone. And I was like, there you go. Because I'm the same thing. I do it and it's stupid sometimes, because, you know, if there was a group of them, you know, I'm sure they would
put yourself in jeopardy.
Exactly. But I'm sure, you know, I probably would be stupid enough to say, right, then let's go. And then they would be a bit more, you know, what's the word? You know, confident with just one person walking up
numbers.
to them. But you know, I understand to a point what you mean, but it's not about being. I just don't like to be bullied or threatened, because I had a lot of that as a kid anyway. So it's like, you know, it's you know, the psychology of it is incredible, and it's a massive part, I think, in what we do.
Well, when we're talking self-defense, psychology, as we said already, is one of the most important things. And you can be learning self-defense all your life and still not be capable of defending yourself. You can learn martial arts a little bit, it can be absolutely brilliant at defending yourself. So anybody who turns around to you and say martial arts doesn't work in self-defense, doesn't know what they're talking about, because they don't know the person they're dealing with. That's the thing. They've got to understand the psychology of the individual they're dealing with, you know, and that's basically it. You know, how many people, I mean, you said yourself, in the army in Afghanistan, you're in a bad situation, suddenly, you know, little pricks suddenly turn into heroes.
They do, and they honestly do, and it's incredible to see. Then at the end of it, they're still little pricks. Like, it's like, you know, I trust you with my life, but not my wife, sort of thing. But you know, it's funny. It's funny. Hey, right, that was good. I like that. We kind of we went in a direction. Can we talk about? I want to talk about some Lau Gar syllabus. I want to talk about the walks. Okay, we have had some questions, and I'll read out some questions later on. But right now, I just want to talk about the walks in Lau Gar, and what I want you to do is, can you explain why we do the walks, what they're for? Obviously we've probably covered a lot of this in other podcasts, but I think I just want to talk about the most common mistakes you see with the walks, and we'll go all the way through. We'll do all the basic walks, so we won't do the Serdong walks and all that. So if we can just do them, go ahead. I mean, you know, this is interesting.
Kok Chung Marbo.
Kok Chung Marbo, and that means what? Combination of walks, right?
But that's how we describe it. I actually had a what was it? A messenger from one of our avid listeners who asked me about Chinese and so on, and I had to apologise that, you know, I don't use that much Chinese terminology, because you can say Kok Chung Marbo means a combination of walks, but does it? What does Marbo mean?
Marbo's
K Marbo is a horse stance. So where do we get this Marbo from? Is it basic stance? Is it basic step? And whatever. So we don't know, because Kok Chung Marbo, we have some steps within the walks that aren't basic. Like in the Sun Yu Q. So you're going down, you're coming up, etc., etc. Okay, so as far as these are basic things to learn, to teach you to step with balance. Okay, step forwards, backwards, sideways, and I think a lot of the time people are practicing these because in the early days, of course, you had to have drilling, because there were so many people in a class that you couldn't teach anyone individually. So you had drills, and these are things that have been born from that. Right, basic walk and punch, up and down the room, regimental, and people still can't get them right, because they think about the hands when they should be thinking about their step. They're thinking about the step when they should be thinking about their hands, and so on. So what you've got to do is you've got to try to take your mind to both of these kind of areas, thinking about your punch, and using the what we would call the 6 coordinations, as you know, we have the style of 6 coordinations, or the fist of 6 coordinations, or the, you know,
just briefly,
Lau Gar look up game.
Briefly, what are they, just for those listening?
Okay, so you have your arms, your legs, and your trunk for the external, and for the internal you have your eyes, your breath, and your attitude or spirit. That is the 6 coordinations, and we are using all those when we do our walks. Well, we're using them when we do everything if we can, but it's a great way of training your walks when you use those coordinations. That means that when you step, think about where your feet are, think about where your balance is within the distance between your feet, think about the position of your hips, think about the position of your arms and shoulders, lowering your shoulders, rolling your shoulders round. If you're doing a basic punch, for instance, ping choi, then you're thinking about how that your shoulder is low and it's springing out or firing out like a little catapult bang. But the most important thing, of course, you're thinking about the other arm coming back, and then of course the defense device in between, both as it goes out and as it comes in. So I'm not going to try to devise or explain all the different walks, but basically what you're trying to do with the walks is to perform the techniques in the most basic way. And
it's a basic way, but you've got to give it intent if you're going to do
and like I said earlier, because they are taught by rote and they were taught in a much bigger arena than they are today, people tended to walk all the way down the room. But what I find that people miss for that reason, because they continue to try to walk all the way down the room, maybe do 10, 15 all the way down like a church hall, or all the way down even like a sports hall, and then they turn around at the end and they miss the most important value, and that is the turn. So transferring from one direction to another, and of course in that sense, because they're used to going up and down rooms, they forget to turn to the side and go sideways as well. So if you're training walks,
you're talking about 90-degree turns there.
If you're training walks, then not only should we do 180-degree turns, you should also practice 90-degree turns. And one of the things I tend to teach is, as people are doing a walk, each time they step and punch, I ask them to twist on both the balls of the feet, not on the heels and the balls of the feet, but on the balls of the feet. They twist to the side 90 degrees, do the block and punch, then turn back, do block and punch in the correct way, using the correct part of the foot to turn. Okay, and that will give them a guide as to whether their stance as they stand going down the room is good, and if they turn to the side, that stance should be obviously the opposite way around, but perfect in the same way.
So just to reiterate that point, if you're when you're walking down the hall, guys, if at any point you stop in a walk, all you do, just use the balls of your feet for now, twist 90 degrees and reassess your stance. If your stance was correct initially, pointing in the one direction, when you turn on the balls of your feet, because really your feet aren't moving anywhere, if they then retain that a viable stance, your stance was good in the first place. So that's what you're saying, really.
So if your right foot is forward, you'll turn to your left, and if your left foot is forward, you'll turn to your right. But remember, if your footwork is too long when you turn, it will be too wide when you turn. And if it's too wide when you turn, it'll be too long. When you're narrow and long. When you turn,
because we're trying to emphasize the 8 stance when we're doing these walks primarily, right?
To a degree, your feet will always turn in. And an exercise we do with that obviously is if people have their feet too far forward, or their legs, their toes kind of splaying outwards, then what we tend to do is go up to somebody and we'll put our knuckles, or ask them to do it. More so today than because most people don't like you smacking them now. Get them to smack their knuckles on the front of their shin, and you'll find the bone, and it hurts. And when you turn your toes inwards and they do it again, they'll hit the muscle. So there'll be a lot more protection there from low kicks than had they have had their shins sticking out. So it's very important to turn their toes very slightly in. Okay. And of course, then you have different steps like Sun Q, where which is also in Falcune, where you can kick them in the groin, and you shouldn't be able to reach their groin.
Sure.
Go on. Sorry. I was just going to say, not because you put the knee in the way, but simply because your stance is twisted.
See, a lot of people do the single. Going back to what you were saying about turning the feet in. when you're doing the single leg stance. Guys, what's the name of it now? I can't remember. When you're just on one leg. Oh, not hanging stance. It's when your whole foot is
single step. Yeah, single
leg stance. Yeah,
that's
whatever.
what it's called.
Is it what it's called? Oh, I don't know. But a lot of people just, instead of twisting the foot that is up, twisting in towards the groin.
Yeah.
They'll just let the foot dangle and the toes pointing forward, and of course you are exposing that shin bone, if you like. In that case, obviously the groin is
not
open
only
as well.
that. You're exposing, if you have bare feet, of course, or small shoes.
Yeah.
You're exposing your toes as well. So.
Yeah. So that's what you're saying about twisting.
But of course, you're not really blocking your groin either. So.
Well, okay.
Well, also if your leg is apart, if you're not putting your knee, your foot quite close and down towards your knee, then it becomes a loose target anyway. So when you kick it, it's far more likely to swing, with the kick and get injured and obviously make you lose balance.
Right.
Than if it was more solid stance.
Yeah. Just going back to initially in the walks, I mean.
Yeah.
We'll always step forward into a walks, and that's it's kind of incidental, but I just want to make the point of it. So if we're starting from eBay ready position, we'll always step forward into a walk, and I guess the psychology there is we're advancing to battle. We very rarely want to be stepping back. Is this right?
Well, the same with the hand. The same with the hand blocks. When you get ready for a hand block, you never step back ready, then to step forward. There's no point in that. So you always put your left foot forward for number one hand block. You never put your right foot back. So that's where you that might be relevant. But of course, it's a good idea to practice these, of course, going forwards. But then you can also practice them turning 90 degrees. You can also practice them turning 180 degrees. You can also practice them going backwards. And it's a great exercise to get the whole class to do it with their eyes closed, because that's when when people can do the step properly. And as long as you keep an eye on everybody, because you end up with someone, you have to say stop, and because one person is going off on a tangent, and their fist when they punch is almost hitting someone else's face, because it's so funny to watch, because and they open their eyes and they look at where they are and they think, Jesus Christ, where am I? How come I ended up here? Because they can't do the turns measurably. They can't, and that is a great exercise to measure the way people can work their stances.
Absolutely.
So stances are so important, and of course walks are a great opportunity to do the most basic step, the fighting step. Okay, and of course you do it with all sorts of guises, different combinations of hands. But and then of course with the Sun Q, you're going forwards, attacking fast forwards, and then quickly springing back into that kneeling step, and then straight back up again. People tend to sit there because initially you learn it in one move, then the second move, then the down step, and then up. But in reality, once you get to green sesh at least, you should start doing him 3 bang bang and down and up, straight away, straight up, and bouncing and springing straight back up. You never sit down there on your knee.
A point I see a lot of people doing when they're doing the basic walk and punch. Now, obviously, I'm not talking about sort of beginners here, but you can make the point to them. Is actually, there's a couple of things. Number one, I guess we start with the position of the other fist, not the punching hand, the other fist. Where's preferable to have that? Because a lot of people put it all the way back on their side. I mean, myself, I always sort of put it in the centre of my body, it's my heart mouth, so to speak. What's the best? What would you say?
Well, again, when they're beginners, they learn to do dead straight punches as long as the arm will go, and therefore the opposite to that is bringing the arm back as far as it will go, which means it's sitting upside down on your waist, because that's as far as it's relative. Any further than that, if you put it behind you, you've got to bring it back from behind you in order to it's the same with a knife defense. When you're defending yourself in a knife defense, you put your hands on your thighs, because any further than that, they'll cut your thighs anyway. Okay, so your thighs are targets. So if your hands are down there, that's as far back as they need to go. If you take them behind you, you've got to bloody bring them from behind you in order to do any defence. So, and you don't want to stick them any further than your thighs, because then they become targets again in themselves. So the hand coming back to the waist is as far back as it will go, and the hand being puncher, the punching hand, will go out as far as it goes. But of course, as you develop, you probably won't bring it back that far, because you're thinking more about the defence of the centre and the fighting position, but with fists or with spears, because again the walks differ, and you will kind of sort of ascertain to be more central then. But that shouldn't be taught to beginners initially, because beginners will never have that long punch. Now, talking about the long punch, of course, when we're talking about self-defense and the misconceptions of self-defense, is if ever you watch, and we have said this before on our podcast, if ever you watch someone doing self-defense and the person steps and punches with a long arm, and then they stand there and wait for the reaction of the defender, that is not a great way of learning self-defense, because no one in reality would actually stand there and not react once they've thrown a punch and realised that you're going to be able to defend against them. So they're not going to just wait for you to do something. They're going to try to struggle. They're going to try to react. And this is really important to make a point of. So learning to step and punch is only a vehicle to learning to punch straight, to learning to position your feet in a good way, so that you always fall into good posture, into a good balance. It's not a self-defense scenario, okay? So don't treat it like so. Treat it as a basics. It's like saying I can drive a racing car, but first of all you got to learn where to put the key, and you've got to look where the key is. You've got to look where the window wipers are. You've got to look where the indicators are, and so on, before you can actually drive a car. So that's what it is. It's just the basics.
That's the basics. But with the greatest of respect, you can look at it in a more advanced way. If you can perceive it that way, you can give it more meaning.
Of course. That's why you're bringing your hands closer forwards when you're still practicing those things. You shouldn't forget doing them. You shouldn't not do them just because you got the higher, Søren Dong, Ping Choi, Chin Tak, that kind of thing. Søren Pak Jern, Fan Choi, Hao Chang, and all these walks shouldn't take over the most basic things, because honestly, the faster you do the most basic things, the better they are for you, and they're far more, because they're so basic, they're far more useful. And of course, you go from one punch, apart from the spear hand, you'll also do 3 punches, of course. So when you do the 3 punches, you don't just punch 3 times at the same target. Always when you step, you do a punch high, then the punch hand has to come over the top of the retracting hand, but that one goes to the medium, to the body, and then you retract that hand, and the other hand goes over the top of it, even though it's going lower. So it's face, chest, stomach, if you like, all the time. And so you always alternate the targets, make it more exciting. And the worst thing an instructor can do is stop everyone while he's trying to teach someone else. So the only advice I can give to any instructor is teach. You're going to give your students confidence if you get them to do the calls. Each one of them calls 10, or each one of them calls 5, where they call in English and Chinese, whatever they want to do. But then, as they're calling, you can correct someone without disturbing the rest of the class. You do never ever want the whole class to be standing there waiting for one individual to be corrected, because you're going to lose that individual. Why? Because he's embarrassed, because he knows everybody's waiting for him, and he knows he's getting it wrong, right? So you really must not do that. You must get the beginners to teach by learning them, teaching, encouraging them to call. That will give them more confidence. Each one of them feels like they're part of the same team, because they're waiting for each other to do the calls. They'll get a lot more confidence, so therefore they very easily start helping you out. Whereas if you never give any responsibility to them, you'll get nothing. You'll get absolutely nothing. So,
but it's worth trying. Just encourage people to get involved in the teaching of the class from an early age. But that's another podcast, I think. So what I want to do is just maybe ask you what are the most common mistakes in the broad strokes as I list off the walk. So if we start with the basic walk and single punch, and I suppose we can talk about the 3 punches as well, but basic walk and punch, what's the most common thing you see?
They turn the hand too early when they punch, and therefore it's not a punch, it's actually a scrape.
It's a
if you were to try and break,
yeah.
if you were to try and break a piece of wood with it, would you be able to break a piece of wood with it, or does it bend up at the elbow and then swing up and twist out?
Okay.
That's so you've got to basically perhaps get them to do it with their palm open, with their fingers, and they actually do the fingers upside down and then rotate it and point out, then make them do a fist in the same manner.
Okay.
But you know, or even with a single finger point, hand upside down, and then they twist the finger to point at somebody or at something. Okay, and that's a great way of getting people to do a straight punch.
Okay, basic walk and 3 punches.
There's one more thing. There's one more thing about that, but it can be worked in the it can be worked in the 3 punches as well.
Yeah.
Often people concentrate on the actual punching hand, when really what you're trying to do is motivate that punch energetically wise, energy wise, by pulling the other one back, because you really pull the one back as hard as you can. The other one going out will go out a lot faster, because you'll punch it with your spine. So as you pull it back, you make sure you go through the center line, of course, so that you're blocking as you come in and you're blocking as you go out.
Okay, right. So if you take that literally, everybody, you're punching through your center line, because it's a flat punch. Obviously the punch hasn't turned out at this point, but I can just envisage people turning their hand flat and punching through the center line, but what they've done is they've bent their wrist. Like, do you understand what I'm saying? It's completely a foreign. You're going to hurt. You're going to bust your wrist if you don't. But no, all you're doing is don't exist when you punch.
If you're thinking about number 1 hand block, the position of number 1 hand block, I'm not saying it comes out the same. So don't please misquote me. I'm saying the position when that fist is still upside down, out in front of you, and the elbow is still touching your ribs. Okay. That position is where you will start to turn the fist the right way around. Okay, at that point. But at that point, that fist is right in the center, in line with your solar plexus. Your elbow is slipping past your nipple, if you want, or just below your nipple, so that it's along your ribs, and then you're going to twist. Okay, and so that's more of a straight punch. You don't want to do a straight punch from the side, of course, and then punch out there, because you've got this big gap in between the 2 punches. So that's always a problem for people.
Spear hand and punch. Mutsi Ping Choi. Mutsi Ping Choi, or
most
Bilgi,
people,
or whatever. Whatever.
Most people forget to turn their spears. And the other thing is, I want you to imagine everybody doing it with a mandarin tunic on. With the big sleeves.
Are we going to get caught up the sleeve? Woo!
Yeah. How many times do you think they're going to break their fingers as they try to, do that? So what you've really got to do is make sure that when the right hand is coming in, it's coming in, whatever it is a punch at the time, but it's coming in just the same, and it opens up. It can open up as a block. So, but most people call it, as a beginner, they'll keep it closed. So pull the right fist in. The spear has got to bounce out. It's got to bounce out. But that fist has got to be right in front of your chest before that spear, is out there, because otherwise, what's going to happen is you're going to pull it in, and if you keep to the center line and the other one to the center line, all you're going to do is send your fingers straight up your sleeve and break your fingers. So, just be wary of that. So you've got to have a point where that fist and the fingers are literally, they're past the fist as it comes in. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's already on its way there.
It's already going forward.
Yeah, but you've got to see the 2 of them meet. In the center, in the middle, they're almost. You can say they're touching.
It's no space thing, guys. It's not no gap. Don't have a gap.
No gap.
If any of this is like what they're talking about, please get in contact with us and we'll do your video or whatever. No problem. Let's just shift on double punches.
Or double
Cern
punches.
Ping
Yeah.
Choi. Now this one, oof. A lot
It's
of
a
people
really
get this one.
interesting. Yeah, they do, because it's a, they look at the rotation and they think it's a right to left rotation or a left to right rotation with these things. Okay, in other words, completely bringing the elbow and the fist around vertically across them.
Yeah.
It's not. It's literally a rotation of your forearm, and as you rotate your forearm, what does it want to do? It completely rotates.
You're
We
doing
talked
it
about
now.
this the
You're
other-
doing it now, aren't you?
I'm sorry, yeah, I know I am. Yeah, and it rotates all the way around as far as it can, and then it gets to a point where it can bounce off the oncoming punch, and it continues, and it whips itself back. So it wants to go back. So instead of doing two movements, block across, then punch, you're literally doing one movement,
Ba-bum.
twisting, bang, straight back out again. So the fist is literally, it's already out anyway, remember, okay, so it's coming up from the side, from your side, it rotates, and as it rotates, it's the forearm that rotates, okay, and the elbow is touching the side of the ribs, the forearm is right in front of you, but it's coiling round in a direction that, as if someone was trying to twist your wrist. You're doing it as far as you can, and then you let it go, continue, and it will bounce its way back into a normal position. So it's a bouncing movement, a twisting, bouncing movement, and not across your body. Because across your body is two movements, it takes too long, and you end up doing a back fist as well.
Yeah, but it's worth saying. I mean, and this is an expansive thing, but we are literally talking about the most basic use of these techniques within the syllabus, as in we are training them for a strike, right?
But
we're striking.
but
come on.
I was just going to say, but in an advanced way, because I'm not talking to beginners when I'm saying this, because beginners will not get that. They will just do it in the way that they're shown, and instructors shouldn't really try to teach beginners like this. It's too much to learn. It's too much information. All I'm talking about is the way that they work, not the way they should be taught. Okay, so I'm trying to sort of, it's like a digestion of the movement, as opposed to the birth of the movement. Do you understand what I'm saying? These are the mistakes that people make as they advance.
I mean, it's what I was going to get at was, we're talking about these walks purely within the context of the syllabus, meaning they're strikes. Now, if you start analysing every single walk, you can develop grabs, releases, locks, throws, etc. So don't have anyone go, oh, it's not just a block in the strike. It's not. I mean, the motion of the double punch, we know it's not. You can make a
you can do a throw. You do a turn. It's a beautiful throw.
Yeah, exactly. So I just want you to think, but we are
and a release,
and
a trap.
And
a lock.
But there's so many to them. But please don't think it's just you're just doing the walk, and don't have that mentality when you're doing them. Particularly if you're more seasoned. Obviously, beginners are different. Moving on. This is a weird one. I say double bridge hands. What's that about? Why are we doing this? It's a weird one, right? Come on.
Yeah. But also, it's also known as swinging bridges. Swinging bridges. Okay, so you have
First
three
of all,
different.
What is a bridge? Why is it called double bridge?
Okay, I was just going to explain then. So you've got your fist, you've got your wrist, okay, your elbow, and you've got your shoulder. So the three bridges are your wrist, your elbow, and your shoulder.
But also, you call them gates. We also refer to them as gates.
Yes, wrist, that's elbow, right. Shoulder. 3 gates or 3 bridges. And if you get past the first one, the wrist, then you've got the elbow. You can do a bong sao, or you can move in another way. And if you get past the elbow, you can still rotate the shoulder. And if they get past the shoulder, you're dead. That's it. So the idea is to utilize all 3 joints in order to retain defense. Now, when you're doing a double bridge, it's a swinging bridge, so it's rotating as well, which is why it's swinging, so it can lift the target up as you with the one rotating double bridge, and then the punch comes underneath and strikes. Okay, and I'm using strike in a loose term because, as you say, we can do it in lots of different ways. Use it to break a hold, use everything in your power, whatever you want to do. It totally depends on what you're thinking about, but as it in its most basic form, let's just look at it. Swing in bridge, press in, punch as they go. And a good example is number 6 kick block.
Yeah.
Okay, swinging around, you're using it, number 6 kick block. Swing it, try to lift the person up as you punch. But if you try to push him forward, the punch becomes irrelevant because you're taking the power, the energy away from the punch that you're trying to make. So he's got to go up and not out.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's basically that.
What-
The going down.
Yeah, I was going to say, why include the going down if
Well, depending on where your foot is, if your foot is around his foot, you can trap his knee and you can actually literally go down with him, take his leg down, so make him collapse. Okay, and then strike if you want to. But alternatively, of course, in most cases when you're doing this walk, you literally are you're attacking twice, then someone's retaliating with a kick. You withdraw, you're swinging your knuckle and trying to hit that kick in leg, and you're going down to be below that the rest of the open, the punches and so on. So you're literally meeting the kick as it comes to you with a knuckle, aiming at what's called the dragon's tears, which is the top of his foot on the bony part of his instep, and that's a little point of reference.
But what if he's wearing steel toe caps?
He's wearing steel toe caps, don't do that.
But it's just a walk, man. It's just a walk.
I'm at a different target. In fact, how many people are going to train so well that they can get down and straight back up again? Not very few. So the objective, of course, is as you're learning. And when you're older, you're not going to go down so low. When you're older, you're going to be aiming at the knee instead. So, and that's obviously going to be quicker.
So, because we're talking about walks, we've had a question this week. It says, "Hi, Stephen James. Blah 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 blah. I love the podcast. Thank you." And it's from Anon, by the way. It's him again. It's him again. It says, "When I'm doing the walks, more so with the hands than the kicks, I'm trying to relax the arms. Although I think I am.
Good.
But when I check, they're still stiff. Any advice on how not to be stiff? Many thanks. I'm really enjoying the podcast."
You've got to try and relax. You're obviously trying to squeeze your fist too early if you are doing walks with a fist. So you've got to relax. The fist only squeezes at the last second. If you try to squeeze it tighter at the beginning, then it slows the whole process down, and all the energy is dissipated around the arm. So you've got to try to make a total relaxed punch. It's like Bruce Lee said, isn't it? Karate punch. It's like an iron bar.
Whack.
Yeah. Wang.
We do know the quote. It's just I'm not saying it because I've said it before.
I know. Bang. You just relax the shoulder. If you put out your fingers as far as you can when you're doing a stretch, for instance, you put them out right in front of you, and you keep your chin down so you don't strain your neck, and you lean your fingers as far forward as you can, and really roll those shoulders. That's where your punch should be. Your punch, in effect, is almost as long as your kick, right? If you can roll your shoulders actually give you a good 4 inches or more onto your punch. So if you're doing that with a spear, you can imagine that the spear then adds to that. So you got like 8 inches extra of technique as opposed to a fist. And always remember that a fist has to be trained, because if you teach people to punch everybody, why do you think boxers wear bloody wrapping bandage around their hands? Because when they're throwing punches like that to that extent and that power, they're going to break their hands. Fists are not meant to strike at people. They've never been meant to strike at people, but they often are used because people just get angry, squeeze their fists and try to hammer each other. But of course they've devised this idea that a straight punch is a fast punch, so as long as you train it, it's fine. If you don't train it, first thing you know is break your knuckles, and more people are in hospital with broken knuckles than the people they actually hit. Because if you punch someone in their head and you hit their skull, it's your fingers that are going to come off worse. That's for sure. And all they have to do is duck. Right? They're trying to protect their face, they duck, you punch their head, you break your wrist or your knuckles or both. So fingers poking can be far more effective as long as you're aiming at accurate points, and otherwise a slap is far more useful. rather than a hook. A slap is far more useful because there's nothing to break.
Yeah.
And a cupped palm is far more devastating than a hook if you're not trained.
It's also targeting as well. Like, you're not saying don't punch people. You're saying I don't
No,
know.
I'm not
You're
saying
saying
that.
it's where you punch. So if you punch someone in the stomach or in the solar plexus, then
Of
that's
course.
soft. But if you punch someone in the skull, that's hard, and chances are it's gonna hurt you.
But they weren't aiming for their skull, James. They were aiming for their face.
Yes,
so what I'm saying
I
is,
understand,
if they throw a punch and they're not training that punch, and they haven't prepared that punch, and it's got a likelihood of hitting their elbow, for instance, then it's a likelihood it's going to get injured. So you've got to be wary when you throw punches. All I'm saying is, boxers will wrap their, everyone who does punching sports will wrap their knuckles to protect them and keep them tight against any situation where they're going to be throwing those punches against another target. And then of course they've got the added insulation of the glove, right, on the most part. Maybe MMA fighters will just wear bag gloves, or sort of fingerless bag gloves, so they can use their fingers to grapple. Okay,
Well, they
but
need
nevertheless,
to use their wrists as well. Don't forget, boxing, the wrists are going to be fixed. You've got no flexibility.
they're going to be.
Whereas Thai
absolutely.
boxing, for example, you would need the flexibility in the wrist, because then you can grapple in the clinch, etc., and push heads, etc. But I never really liked hand wraps. I never thought, every time, like I was doing fighting stuff.
They're there for a reason.
Yes, I understand that, absolutely.
If you're not going to do that much punching against, in a ring or against a bag, but if you are going to do an awful lot of bag work, you really do need to wear the protection. Because you especially people who've never punched a bag before, and they punch it and it swings out, and of course they try to punch it to stop it. Of course the weight of the bag is a lot more now because it's coming back to you. When you throw the punch, you didn't expect that kind of weight. It's double the weight, and so bang goes your wrist.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you've got to be really wary when you're using fists. That's all I'm saying.
There's an awful lot of, going back to the question, there's no you can, when people are in the basic walk and punch position, if you like, they've just done the punch. What sometimes I'll do is I'll walk around sort of my guys now, and I'll start feeling their forearms, and I'll just see how tense are you, how tense are you, and I'm being pedantic, but what I'm saying is, just relax. Your fist shouldn't be relaxed. Granted, it should be a reasonly solid.
Only when it hits the target.
Yes, this is what I'm saying. But it doesn't mean you lose form after you've done the thing. You can't just let the fist completely dissolve. But
no,
what I'm
it
saying
has got to stay. But you won't have time to make a fist again otherwise.
But what I'm saying is, obviously there's got to be a certain amount of tension in your body when you're throwing a punch, but try your best to keep as much as a relaxed posture and delivery as possible, because it's like a tense muscle is a slow muscle anyway.
That's the difference, you see, between other martial arts. As any powerful martial arts, they like to use closed fists when they're fighting. The whole point, which is why people tend to think that in the 70s they used to call Kung Fu the woman's martial art, because they see everybody with open hands. But the fact is, if your hand's already open, you can still hit with it, and you can make a fist a lot faster.
But it's
a lot harder.
Because it's longer.
Yeah, but it's a lot harder to open a fist in order to grab. It's much faster to close a open hand in order to punch. It's because it's stronger, because naturally, of course, we were able to jump from tree to tree. And like us, and that's what you were designed for. So it's much quicker to close your hand and stronger.
But generally in the walks, in basic walk and punch, we're not advocating, you're not closing your fist, opening your hands, are you? After each punch, you tend to
no. You're
just
trained.
So
you're trained to keep them closed, but don't keep them tight. Keep them.
All right.
Keep them ready.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. While we're here talking about the walks, anyway, we will just touch on the Cern Dong walks, etc. The Dong walks. And then I've got another question for us, and we'll wrap up. Okay. The Dong walks. Explain them. What are they about? Why?
Well, Sundong, Jordong, Hardong.
Yeah.
They're just using a combination of a kick-in technique and a blocking and a punching. But
Mm-hmm.
is it a block? Or is it a trap? Is it a cover?
Yeah,
what I like to do when I can only speak for myself, but when they're doing Sundong, Ping Choi, Chin Tak, okay, I like to think of the block not necessarily as a block, although it can be used as that. I always try to encourage people to sort of put out the hand as if they were trying to cover the other person's eyes.
Whack them in the throat.
Or whack them in the throat. If they're shorter people, it's a great method of striking up towards the throat. You have to think about it in terms of fighting strategy, as in terms of war strategy as well, where you're trying to attack an individual or an army, if you like, on different fronts. So you have the raising the palm up towards the face to hide the eyes, to cover the eyes, or to strike the face, or to strike the throat, as you said, or to block if necessary. But as you're doing that, a great way of doing it, cover the eyes. They can't see the punch coming. They feel the punch. The body comes forwards. There's the kick. Okay, so it's basically, block, punch, kick.
That's what I meant.
Three completely different areas of attack, which means you're attacking them on three fronts, not defending and then attacking twice.
But here's a good sort of comparison. Competition fighting, semi-contact. How many times do you see that reverse punch? Because obviously, back fist reverse and that. What you're doing with that other hand becomes a cover. Or
of course,
you could go straight into it, or go off from the off, do a reverse punch and just in their face put your hand. So you're effectively doing the walk, but in a different, in a different context, in a competition context. So when people say, I do kung fu or competition fighting, they're one in the same.
You're doing the same.
Just look at the friggin' syllabus you're training. You're
using the same strategy. You're just you're just actually using it. You're either practicing it or using it. Okay, so that's that thing we talked about earlier about, is martial arts useful for fighting? It is fighting. All you're doing is practicing it. So and that's an important factor. Of course, you can apply it to self-defense depending on the circumstances, depending on your capability, tactics and strategy you choose to use. Dependent on your strategy and tactics, depends on whether or not they're going to meet the criteria for that particular fight, whether they're going to actually be successful, depending on the other person's knowledge of your tactics. And that's why martial arts in general, kung fu particularly, we like to say, must be invisible. So that's why when we're training these most basic techniques, when we talked about reverse punch, we're talking about starting with a big hand and pulling the fist all the way back, and then you said later on you tend not to do that. You tend to bring the hand back and protect the center. Well, all you've done is exactly the same thing, but far more economically. Because you can understand it
sooner rather than faster. If we're talking about that, anyway. So No, just pluck out the air. Most common mistake you see with Serdong, the high block, Ping Choi, punch and kick. What's most common?
I think it's just timing, really. It's just timing that people, you often see when they first start to learn it, they try to do a punch and a kick at the same time. No, you can't do that. You punch as you pull the punch back. Imagine you're pulling them onto your kick. You're not, because your fist is closed. But why keep your fist closed as you develop? You've just covered their eyes. You've just punched them. Bring your arm back to pull them in. Maybe grabbing the arm or whatever, and give them a good kicking. And basically, utilize it as a self-defense technique. Don't kick too high. Always kick to the groin or to the leg. Don't necessarily use a toe pointy kick or a ball of the foot kick. Think about a stamping of the side of the inside of the leg. There's all sorts of strategies you can use if you're thinking in terms of incapacitating the person that you're training with. And I don't mean that completely or physically or literally. I'm saying That's what you should be thinking when you're training. You should all be thinking self-defense, because that's what the techniques are for. Don't differentiate martial art from self-defense. Martial art differentiates from self-defense because you start to make it differentiate. You force it to, because you stop doing your most basic training, and you forget to take those sets apart because you practice them so much. You can practice them until you're blue in the face, but if you haven't took them apart and learned what the techniques can be used for, they're no use to you. And that's where these people on the YouTube are saying martial arts doesn't work in self-defense, because you're not practicing self-defense. But if you practice it with all your basics and make sure that there are techniques that come from it that work, not that don't rely on an individual standing there with his fist open for 5 minutes waiting for you to respond. Get someone to spar and use those techniques. What do you think sticky hands is? It's a practice of understanding those feelings, okay, but practicing it with sensitivity, slowly. It's not a fight, albeit it's a practical way of learning to fight. So obviously if you watch someone do sticky hands and they do it nice and relaxed and carefully and enjoy it, that's great, but then try to see it when it becomes much more vibrant, much faster, much more close in. Obviously the faster the techniques, the closer you have to be. Then it becomes all about feel, and it really is a beautiful thing to behold. And but it's never going to be the be all and end all of fighting, because self-defense can't expect an individual to meet you in the same way. So they're not going to do the things you expect them to do. They're always going to respond by either trying to hit you somewhere else, or they're going to try and step back, or they're going to respond from a pain.
I've watched the Dimac guy on YouTube, and he hits them about 10 times and they don't move. So you're wrong there. You're wrong. Mind you, another thing I saw, if you ever get a chance, guys, go on YouTube and watch Elvis Presley and martial arts. It is
please.
The funniest thing ever. But I tell you what, the guy, he got like it's you know what I mean? Like, the guy's a legend. He has his custom made gi with EP on the back, all his badges, taking care of business badges, and he walks in with some cowboy boots on, with his and shades, gold chains, the lot, and he's grading. He does it. It's brilliant, but it's an example of, I'll hit him about 20 times and they've not done the thing. But he's actually giving Bill Superfoot Wallace, the legendary undefeated middleweight kickboxing champion, really funny guy. He's giving him a black belt. He's grading Bill Wallace. Elvis Presley is grading Bill Wallace, and you're like, what am I watching here? It's great. But that's
like the guy who I did the response video for. He's grading people and giving them something.
Exactly, not a frigging clue. But it's Elvis Presley. If you're in that group of people with Elvis Presley, you ain't going to say, Elvis, what are you on about? Oh yeah, it's Elvis, for God's sake. I love him. Right. Still talking about the Dong walks, I think we can pretty much sort of combine all three into the same principles. But any other points you want to make with Jaw Dong or Ha Dong?
No, not really. It's the same principles, Always don't necessarily just think of them as blocks themselves. Think of them as responses to someone grabbing you. So the first movement, certainly for the Jaw Dong, your hand might be anywhere. It's certainly, someone grabs it to try and hit you, you rotate it, you bring it up. When you bring it up, you're going to throw a punch. Okay, you're rotating their arm as well, remember? You throw the punch. Now, don't forget, you don't have to punch them in the face, you don't have to punch them in the body. Think about punching that arm. Just think about punching that muscle. Just don't and I have a tendency not to tell people to punch. I mean, obviously with beginners you've got to get them to punch accurately, so you get them to punch to the chest. But anyone advanced who wants to learn self-defense, don't bloody punch to the chest, because there is nothing there. Okay, it's just a solid thing, and unless you've got a punch like a freight train, you're not going to create a great deal of injury. You're just going to make them angry if they're bigger than you. I would punch them just above the nipple. I would punch them to the onto the what's it called now, that bloody Muscle. It's escaped me for a minute.
Oh, I don't know. I'm no good with muscles.
Your boob, basically.
Yeah.
You know, I know what it is. It's escaped me. I apologise.
You mean you don't know the name of Lobster Thermidor 14? What's wrong with you? Come on.
Yeah, Christ, it's
I don't know. Someone listening now is screaming.
Your pecs. Jesus Christ, how could that escape me?
Mind you,
yeah.
the centre, the sternum. Oh, not that they're talking about this, but just in the middle of the sternum, if you just push your little finger there. Oh, I did it now.
Oh, of course, yeah. We're talking punching to the chest.
I know.
I'm not talking punching to the stomach. You know, no. I'm talking about punching as close to the arm as possible to make use. If that arm's out, you make use of it. You know, punch.
Sorry, I don't know why I said that. I was just
no, it's fine.
Right. So, another thing I want to mention about the dong walks is a lot of please try and keep the space between all your techniques, your punches, etc. Yeah. Not to a minimum, but be aware that you want to close the space. So try to avoid big elaborate punches and blocks. Try and minimize it where possible.
Yeah, I also want to make the point about punching people to the stomach, as people do. If you're in a street situation and you decide you're going to punch someone to the stomach, you have to consider the fact that this obviously doesn't go for everybody, but sometimes people say, well, the stomach is a great thing to punch. You punch people in the stomach, and just imagine them wearing one of those big belts, those big buckles that you buy.
I mean, like my buckles? My belt.
Yeah, that you fit to your own belt. And just imagine them wearing that, because that's what they wear them for.
Yeah.
It's not just a sign of,
what?
They love the kind of, kind of affluence.
What are you saying? Affluence.
But it's not just an ornament. It sometimes people wear things like that specifically for a purpose. It's the same people wearing wristbands. They wear them for a purpose. With the leather wristband with all knuckles around. With the studs around them, pointy studs and stuff. They wear them like a bloody dog wears a collar like that. They wear them as a kind of demonstration. I'm hard. And of course it's kind of gone across to the goth kind of thing.
Are you still in the 1970s or something?
Oh, believe me. No, I'm in North America. What do you expect?
You're in Canada. You went violent there. Let's be fair, honest to God.
But some of the things people wear. Jesus Christ! Every time I see people, I think I'm watching ZZ Top.
What's wrong with it? What's wrong with that?
They're great. It's just everyone's got a beard like that. ZZ
I've got
Top.
a beard. I got cowboy boots. I mean, Christ, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pairs of cowboy boots here. What's wrong? What are you doing?
Jesus, really?
Yeah, I've got 8 pairs. Yeah. If you've never worn Western boots, people, wear them. If you've never worn high heels, I tell you what, you'll never look at laced up shoes again. Best bloody thing I've ever done. I was listening to an interview, and I only wear them because me dad wore them. But I was listening to an interview with Patrick Stewart, like Jean-Luc Picard off Star Trek. He was on the radio, and he was saying to the guy, says, I've only started wearing Western boots in the last year or so, and I've never looked back. So you can get them cheap where you are. I'm going to ask you to send me some. I want a nice ostrich pair.
I've got a pair. I see them in the.
It's got to be endangered animals.
In the flea markets. I see them in the flea markets all the time. They're great.
Oh yeah.
Some of them, snake skin and crocodile skin.
I've got a pair of snake skin. They're beautiful, actually. But anyway, we digress. I'm talking about footwear. Blinking, what is this? Right.
Sun Pak Chen Fan Choi Hao Chen.
No. You see, the guy the other day, Sun Pak Chen Fan Tai Chai Hao Chin. I don't think he knew how to say it.
He didn't know how to do it, that's for sure.
Well, what I'll do is I'll post a link to our reaction video on the description of our podcast. So if you haven't seen it, go and watch it, because it's sad, it's funny, it's whatever,
And there's still more to come.
There's plenty more of that to come.
Oh, it's a great. It's a great source of, comedy. I have to say,
it is.
But
But it's tragedy as well. It's tragedy as well.
It's tragedy. It's serious, but at the same time, you think, because people think, how can you pick on someone like that? Believe me, I have a good reason to pick on it. But the most important thing isn't about me personally. It's about the protection of our style and about the integrity of martial arts in general. When you watch people like that, and I can only speak of the person that I've actually responded to. There's going to be there's so many more. You only have to watch YouTube
we haven't started on Jake Mace yet, have we?
Oh, Jake Mace. My hero. I want to see the one with the butterfly knives.
We'll do that. We'll do the butterfly.
He throws it up in the air and catches it. Oh, that's going to be hilarious.
Bless him.
Yeah.
Oh, well. Anyway,
but at the same time, remember, there's an awful lot of people we respect. There are some great martial artists out there, and I don't care whether they're, I don't like cross training personally, but I don't care if they believe in cross training. I don't give a toss. You can listen to them, and you do.
Absolutely.
They're coming from the right angle, even though they might have a completely different opinion to me. I got no problem with that. What I've got a problem with is people who profess to be a martial artist, who are not, who are giving martial arts a bad name, which is why it's literally feeding UFC crowds, it's feeding other martial art crowds, it's feeding these bloody self-defense, self-made millionaires trying to portray
the wheel.
Talking about okay, you go into your hotel room, as we said earlier, and you pull a hair out and you stick it over the door, and damn well then someone's come into your room, so you've got to then get your gun out and start.
When you're a McDonald's executive going to a business meeting in Dallas, you need to be sure of these things, all right? Because you could be followed. You could be followed. You might have the secret to the Big Mac sauce that someone's trying to hijack before. But you don't know. We can't talk about McDonald's now. They're all closed.
Colonel Sanders is trying to get your recipe.
Hey, you can actually online. They've put the Colonel Sanders 11 herbs and spices recipe. But if you follow it to the T, it doesn't taste anything like it. So I watched this Canadian guy in his own kitchen just sort of make it, and he puts loads of pepper in anyway. I'm just talking crap.
And always put Rice Krispies, and then you'll get, if you put Rice Krispies in the
KFC,
batter.
Not in KFC. There's not Rice Krispies. You're talking about
you get the
just crispy chicken. Anyway.
Yeah, but you get crispy chicken in. Oh, maybe you don't get it there, James, but you get it here.
Really? All right.
Spicy, crispy, everything.
Well, Canada's just amazing.
Well, I'm sorry, but yeah.
Well, I'm sorry. Right. Sun Pak Churn Fan Choi, Hao Chang, whatever.
Biggest mistakes?
Yep.
Okay, so they say assume a fighting stance. It's already a fighting stance when you start.
Can I just start?
Go on.
Can I just stop you? It means double pressing palms for anyone who's
Sun
unsure.
Pak Churn, yeah.
So you're pressing out to the side, if you like, with two palms.
Yeah. And it's exactly the same as pressing down in number 5 and 6 kick blocks.
Yeah. So sorry, because we've got some fans in America, and it's a big shout out to all the American people.
It's the same.
I think we've got some people in Canada, but they're not as important.
You've got me. It's the same mechanics, okay? And people say, it's a different technique completely. No, it isn't. It's just a different direction completely. Yeah. Right? It's the same mechanics. If it's the same mechanics, then it's the same technique. All you got to remember is if you use the same muscles to use it, and albeit slightly different angles, so some of the muscles will be slightly different. Yeah. It's the same process. It's the same concept. And therefore, it's the same bloody technique. Because it's going a different direction doesn't mean ape shit. Okay, so it's Sun Pak Churn, pressing outwards rather than downwards, Fan Choi, back fist, Hao Chang, or any other kick. Okay, so the first thing you're doing is automatically going to a fighting stance, but that's part of the move. The person is attacking you and it's great to do this together, by the way, against another person. Yeah. So making them step back as you do the back fist, and then they move as you do the back kick, and straight away they come back to you doing the same thing. Sun Pak Churn, slapping the block out. The biggest mistake in that case is they don't push the palm out far enough, the rear palm. Yeah. So in other words, anyone punching them would hit their arm. So they've really got to be slapping those palms to knock the technique away. Yeah. Then they're going to another bad mistake they make is they're pulling the fist back, whereas reality, it looks like you're pulling the fist back, but in actual fact your arm's staying still, your body is coming towards the arm, so the arm is going out as your body moves forward, right? The other thing is, of course, as you're turning that certain pack joint, you're twisting your foot, so it's enabling you then to step through. And when you twist your foot, you must always turn your heel towards the front, not turn your toes out. If you turn your toes out, you take yourself completely off balance, and you don't make any progression forwards, you only make it sideways. So, and that's, you know, some of the things I pointed out at that on that video. So basically, and I don't want to try and educate the guy because he's a freaking waste of time, but that is the method of the technique. Back fist, and as soon as you back fist, you're turning around, doing your back kick. If we're talking about the back kick, which is the first one you do, another biggest mistake, and he's typical of that, is they kick out, then they pull the leg back before they even turn. If you pull the leg back hard, it will spin you round, and you'll be now looking forward again. But if you just pull it back and you still got the back to the person, guess what's going to happen? He's just going to jump on you or kick you in the nuts. So please,
once the leg is kicked, guys, you've turned in the walk, haven't you? And now your back is to the person. You're kicking out. As soon as your kick is extended, you are pulling that leg back in as fast as you can, but you are,
and it rotates you.
And it rotates you back to the original orientation. So you're using the withdrawal of the leg to aid the rotation, not pulling the leg and then turn, because you just can't.
And the step, of course, is a T-step, so it's like it's Laubo, it's like a cross step, or a unicorn step, if some people call it. A unicorn step, T-step, and back kick.
What? Right. Okay. No, that's good. A question for you: Would these dong walks implemented later on in the syllabus? Because I sort of get that impression, or were they always there?
As far as I know, they've always been there. I've not. They've not been implemented new.
Okay.
I don't think.
When I say new, I mean sort of, when they added 9 and 10 hand block and kick block.
No. I think they were there beforehand.
Oh, okay.
Forgive me if my memory doesn't serve me well, but to my knowledge, I think they were always there.
Right. Okay. No, I was just wondering. Right then. Okay. I'm happy. We'll move on. Obviously, guys, as ever, if you've got any questions about this, please get in contact with myself or Steve or myself. He's the important one. I'm not.
We're always talking. Sorry, we're always talking about Lau, but we're quite happy to listen to anybody who does any martial art who wants to, But obviously, we're biased. Okay, that goes without saying, but we're always quite happy to listen to people, and if they want us to say, oh yeah, but we do it this way because, and that's great, because we can have that friendly argument, or we can listen to them and go, oh, that's a bloody good idea, I think I could interpret mine like that, or I could now change my ideology towards that kind of sort of supposition that the technique works that way. So but the thing is, you've got to remember that we never talk it's impossible for us to talk about any specific part of the syllabus in its totalitarian what's the word?
I don't know, but
in its
totality. I don't know.
That one will do. That one will do.
I don't know if I made that up. I don't know.
Okay, well, it'll do anyway. Because there is uses in coming out your ear holes. There are so many different opportunities to use it in different ways, totally depending on your preference, totally depending on your size, your weight, your speed, preference, your general build, your attitude at the time, the situation at the time. It just, there's so many different ways that you can use these things, and it's up to you, of course, to make use of them. But please don't just practice them and then, as a syllabus. The syllabus is a vehicle. Okay, it is not the be all and end all. The syllabus is a vehicle. So how you use that syllabus is totally up to you, and that's why you see people, so many different people saying, oh no, we do it this way and we do it that way, and it's got to be useful. Now people can say we do it this way, and they show you a move in a set, and you look at it and you think, well, how are you going to apply that? It's just not going to work. And of course they don't get it because they're doing it as part of a set and they're not actually applying it in that self-defense scenario or in a fighting scenario. So they don't recognize that it's not useful. You have to take it from the set, pluck it from the tree in order to taste it. Okay, otherwise it may as well just sit on the tree until it rots, because you're not going to do you any good.
Absolutely. So don't do wushu. Stop trying honest to God, you lot.
I said we were biased, but I didn't know how biased.
You will not do wushu. Yeah. Okay. Right. We'll move on. We'll just finish. We've had a nice question from a listener. Okay. So she says, "Hi guys, a message to you both. So as a student, you've learned your basic syllabus. You have a reasonable understanding of application. You train it diligently, etc., and have done throughout your learning of Kung Fu. The question I'm putting out there is, doesn't it have to look good?" So presumably she means, doesn't it have to look good when we're applying it, or
why should it have to look good?
Right. Okay. Why should it have to look good?
The most important thing is, does it work?
Okay,
It'll look good to you if it works.
Okay.
If you appreciate it, then it will look good to you if it works. But if you don't appreciate, it doesn't work, rather, you're not going to appreciate it anyway. But the important thing is, please don't look at something to look pretty in order for it to, work, because that's not one and the same thing.
But we train the forms to be economical, don't we? Or you can train it to be aesthetic, or athletic, but
it's
so in that respect, I personally think that Chinese martial arts are the most beautiful of the martial arts, simply because I mean, if you look at a wonderful, if you look at wushu, right? I can slag off wushu, but if you look at wushu, it's wonderfully fluid and etc. And it is a beautiful looking martial art.
But it looks absolutely beautiful. But then try and put it together in a fight.
To me,
and then it becomes difficult.
A good old solid, smack in the throat is beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. So it looking beautiful is relative, isn't it?
Yeah.
But let me just say, first of all, real Kung Fu isn't seen at all. It's trained, and to the trainee, it looks beautiful if they succeed in making the technique complete. Okay, but when they've learned that technique, as we always talk about, the big A, the big C, the big D, or big E, or big whatever. I can't even do my alphabet. A, B, C. Yep. Okay, so it's one of them.
You're just a truck driver after all. I saw you a truck driver.
Yeah, and then so basically, it's like the big letters. Learn to read. You get better at it. You get much better muscle memory. Then writing starts to look beautiful, doesn't it? And some people can write with absolutely beautiful calligraphy. They are just calligraphists. I can't even say it.
Calligraphers.
And calligraphers. That's the one.
I think so. We're just guessing. So we're just in the dark.
But other people can write fantastic stories, but their writing is atrocious. And some people become doctors and it's even worse. So just think about it. It doesn't have to look beautiful in order to mean something, okay? But I think it has to mean something before it can look beautiful. Right. So I think that's the important thing. And remember that, as I talked about, big letters first, then small writing. It always looks big, and then when you start to use it, it's practically invisible. The moves are so tight and so defined in order to pursue the target. They look. They're amazing.
That's
for me,
theoretical,
that's beautiful.
Right? So that's theoretical in an ideal world. That's if you train, right? I'm not saying it's theoretical.
Yeah, if you train.
But let me finish. If you are swinging a punch like friggin' John Wayne and hoofing someone on the ground like a football hooligan, but it's working, then surely, it works. So it's achieved its goal. I remember you, right? One of my early classes, you got the group around. You said, "Well, sorry to disappoint you guys. This is Kung Fu," and you just did a loose John Wayne punch, and then you did a nondescript kick. Oof! You said that's kung fu, and I'm like, what? So hang on, what about all the movie stuff? And because it looks way different than that. No, that's it. Like that's it. And I understand what you meant because beauty. How do you define beauty? For me, it's it's got to work. So in a stressful fight, you're going to be hoofing. You're going to be John Wayne.
Yeah. But for me, I mean, we obviously differ here because I don't see that as beauty. I mean, I see it as
no. Beauty. That's why I said, how do you define it? I'm not saying it's aesthetically beautiful. I'm saying if you're hitting someone, you've that's the intent of the move. That's beautiful. But I guess they're talking about aesthetics.
Yeah, of course. Because I think if you can take that hoofer of a punch and make it so much faster and so sharp that it's almost invisible, it's like that big wording comes into that beautiful calligraphy, and that's when it becomes beautiful. But on both counts, it's got to be useful. So making your kung fu beautiful is she's definitely right in saying, should it be beautiful? Well, yes and no. It doesn't have to look beautiful for beautiful's sake, but it has to become defined, refined, in order to, and work in order to become, absolutely perfect. Yeah. And when you do, I mean, there are many techniques we can show on a video if she wants to watch a video. I'm just getting fed up of seeing us now. But one I always use is that example of the, in Far Kyun, where you're doing the, the swinging bridge and then rotating the hands and the uppercut and then the leopard's paw, and you do that in big, and it looks great to people who are watching it. What they see is, which is why wushu looks great, because people are doing these massive movements. But then you take that and you put it in a working order, and you see how much more beautiful it looks then. And I'll do that for if she wants that, she can just request that, and I'll give her an example of that one. Trouble is, I have to get my daughter to stand there and get punched. So, or my son, but my son's away at the moment, so one of them. I'm sure Aaron will do it.
I doubt it.
Trying to get my kids to do it. If you're listening to
this in 50 years' time, wondering what was my dad really like, you're being lazy.
He wouldn't know because
you're being lazy.
He wouldn't know because he doesn't come out of his room.
Right. So that was a great question. That I just want you to understand, for you as well, Steve, that I don't mean I advocate hoofing punches. I'm just using that as an example. So
well, if you look at Choi Li Foot, they kind of advocate
all those yoke punches and Hung Gar as well, like that. It's like so. They're there.
They see that as beautiful. So it's down to the artist, I guess, and down to the choice. I mean, is Picasso's work beautiful? For some, for me, I've never seen a guy with two eyes on the same side of his face.
Haven't you? You've never obviously been to Hereford.
Inbreed.
We're out there.
The only thing is, it's not just the people; it's with the cows as well. It's just it is. I mean, I like art. Art is detail, and that's what defines art. Right. I don't see. I mean, unfortunately, I'm sorry if I'm offending anyone. Picasso to me is not art, and I've seen. Yeah, I know. I've seen the people that have taken their daughter to an art gallery, and the daughter, 5-year-old daughter, has drawn a picture of Matchstick Men and all that lot, and then her dad has put it on the in a frame at the art gallery, and you got all these art critics going, I think it means this, and this is what it meant. Look at the colours, and how defined is this?
And all transcendent. That. It's transcendent.
Yes. And it's bloody done by a 5-year-old. So
I know.
It really is pathetic. So it's the same policy, isn't it, with martial arts? If I say you're good and you say I'm good, then we're an association, and we're stronger together. It only takes someone to turn around and say, no, you're both crap.
I wonder
And I
who
can
that
prove it.
person is. I wonder who we could be talking about. This is yeah, whatever. Right. Anyway, we will wrap it up there. We'd just like to say, guys, thank you so much for listening, and it means a lot to us. You've spent this time with us, and we really hope you get something from it. As always, if you would be so kind and generous, head over to our Facebook page, give us a like, or our YouTube channel, subscribe to us, and hit the notifications bell and all that. And of course, subscribe to us on Podbean. That would be great. We really hope that we put out content that is useful to a point. We agree we're going to have our critics, and God knows there are loads of critics out there.
Oh, that's fine.
But that's fine, guys. We will
Yeah.
we'll have fun. We'll take the mick when we need to, but we'll be serious when it calls for it. Guys, thanks again for joining us.
When are we going to be serious, James?
I don't know, to be honest.
We're passionate, but never serious.
Yeah, absolutely. We're passionate. We just, all we care about is Lau Gar and the proliferation of a beautiful style of Kung Fu, a genuine style of Kung Fu. And if people have a problem with us for that, then you don't do Lau Gar as far as I'm concerned. Now, bugger off, So, sorry, that got a bit heated, didn't it, towards right at the end. Maybe I'll edit that out, maybe I won't. Anyway, guys, thanks ever so much for joining us, and again, blah blah blah. My name's James Still, and again with my teacher Steve, and we hope to see you again on the next one. Take care now, guys. Bye.
Bye.
I kick your little Beijing ass right now, man. I ain't scared of you. I know you know that little tricky shit. Come on.
Hi guys, thanks so much for joining us on the Kung Fu Podcast. If you like that and you want to find out more about us, you can head over to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or YouTube and find us under SJN Martial Arts. And also, guys, this podcast is available on Podbean and iTunes. So, until next time, take care of yourselves, and we'll see you again on the Kung Fu Podcast.
Guns. Now, why doesn't somebody pull off 45 and bang, settle it?
No guns.